Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Astral Jules podcast. Good to see you again. I hope you're all doing well and navigating what is going on in your life as best you can, because there's some crazy stuff going on at the moment. We're in October 2024, and it is really, really hot. And for many people, it's extraordinarily stressful. And because of this, I felt that it was a good idea to start talking about meditation. So this podcast is on the topic of meditation. And, we've all heard of meditation, and we've great intentions to begin a practice, then life gets in the way, or family gets in the way, or work gets in the way. Everything else seems more important than actually sitting with yourself. The Great Awakening is growing legs. More and more people are seeing that their lives and their destinies are not going where they wanted them to go. Many are seeking help to cope with the changes taking place in the world. It is a stressful time. There's a lot of upheaval also. We're dealing with comprehending what is truth and what are lies. This is massive at the moment. It's a stressful time for many of us. Then we find those big questions in life, like, what am I doing with my life? And who can I trust? There's a lot of noise out there in this big world, and it's not easy finding peace at all. So today I have a special guest who has a huge amount of knowledge on the topic of meditation. And I'm really excited he's joining us today. Welcome, Peter Twigg. Hi, Peter. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me on board.
Excellent, excellent. So please tell the audience more about yourself. You're in Sydney, Australia, I hear. And
no, I live to the west of Sydney in the country, and back in 2019, I had the intuition, the feeling to get out of Sydney because it had just become this rat race. And so I moved to 260 kilometres to the west of Sydney in the country. And shortly after that, COVID started. So I considered I was being blessed there. And so I have kind of moved around a bit since then, but I've come back to where I am now, and really enjoying living in the countryside. It's just less intense in terms of what you'd call the astrality, that sort of intensity of living in big cities is not there, and so it makes life much more pleasant. It's a good start.
Yeah, absolutely, great move. And I'm also in the country, and I feel blessed at times. Many people have said, why aren't you in the city? You should be in the city, And I think it's a good move to have, especially at the moment with all that's been going on with COVID, and there's masses of, dissension and frustration going on, that being out in the country is such a big plus. I think we're the lucky ones at the moment. So tell us a bit more about yourself. So do you work besides doing meditation?
I've got a job, and I also have a YouTube channel where I talk about my meditation. I haven't produced any YouTube videos recently, but I will be getting back into that. That's one of my goals for 2025. I meditate, of course, and I've had 36 years of continuous meditation. I actually started my meditation practice a little bit beforehand, where I tried various other types of meditation, and that started in 2024. And probably the most profound experiences that sort of induced me to keep going with it was I was reading a book, and I'd read a paragraph of this book, and I'd sit there with this book and kind of tune in and sort of meditate. And I had the most profound experiences. Then I'd read the next paragraph and go back inside and meditate. And it was a fantastic experience. I remember those experiences from when I was 24, and 24, and that was just brilliant. So it's kept me, it's
Wow.
sustained me, it's kept me going, and I've built my practice, and very lucky to meet a spiritual teacher who helped me for many of those years until he passed away. And now I have my own school of meditation, and I've written a book and continue my own meditation practice. So yeah,
Fantastic.
it's
So
kind of like the jewel in the jewel in the setting. It's in the middle of the setting. It's the yeah, it's just such an integral part of my life now that sort of I wouldn't think of not having it.
yeah, not having meditation, like it's an absolute must. Yeah. So it's a great habit to have to get into. So is it what actually got you started in meditation? Did you have some sort of epiphany that, you know, I need to close my eyes and go within, or was it just the you know, you were reading certain books and all of a sudden you got these realizations and thought this was a good idea?
Well, my first experience that sort of made me want to explore more was when I was 17. I had a near-miss car accident, and it would have been quite a big one. Anyway, I actually avoided that accident, and but you know, that rush of adrenaline you have in after a dangerous moment, and you pull over. I pulled over my car, and I was just sat there, and I just had this sense of there was something happening above my head. I could feel all of these people kind of looking down on top of me, and I just, and it was non-physical. Obviously, it was something else. It was really weird, and I just knew then there's more to this world than just what we see with our physical eyes or hear with our ears, and so that kind of started a little bit of a quest, and of course it went nowhere because, you know, when you're 17 you're caught up with the joys of the world, and so it wasn't until I was 22, 23 that I started to look around and started to ask more questions of myself. And at 24, a friend of mine suggested I do his form of meditation, and I tried that, and I hated that with an absolute passion. It made me really angry. At the same time, I also
By chance?
sorry.
Are you talking about the Vipassana meditations?
No, I did that later on, but I was introduced to transcendental meditation, TM, and for some unknown reason, the whole process just made me very angry. At the same time, in that 24th year, I also read this book and on meditation. I can't remember I've still got the book tucked away somewhere, but it was by this Indian guru, and so I just read his parts of this book, and I practiced the meditation as I was reading the book, and I had these amazing experiences, and kind of like that started my addiction, which thankfully was to something that was good and worthwhile. Yeah, so yeah, it went from there. So and then from there I kind of went into exploring New Age. I had jobs during that time. I was working full time, and you know, just had a pretty full-on life, and yet at the same time, I was also very curious about what else was there. And then when I was 28, I actually met my spiritual teacher. I was actually studying to become a naturopath at that stage, and then from there, I kind of you know, went into becoming a naturopath and a homeopath, and but at the same time, my meditation life started to take off and really started to blossom. So ever since then, I've never looked back. So yeah.
It's interesting you were saying, you know, when you started the TM. I mean, this is, I've heard some people go into Vipassana, where, you know, it's as their very first experience of meditation, and they can't stand it. No, so for anyone who doesn't know, it's like you're with a group of people, and it's like you go on a retreat for, you know, a couple of weeks or a week or so, and you start sitting on the floor and you cannot say anything. So it's complete silence for the whole of your meditation experiences, but you can't say a thing. And most people who have never done meditation before cannot stand it. They get, so all their emotions come up. So what is that about meditation? What's I suppose what's the hardest thing about meditation? What can you expect when you start?
Good question. So there's a lot of principles involved when you ask a question like that. And so one of the first things is when you sit in meditation, you are absolutely still. And that stillness unleashes what is a form of non-physical fire. It's a spiritual fire. It's the thing that upholds the whole universe, basically. And this sense of fire kind of enlivens the layer of our consciousness, which is equated to the mind. And in the Western esoteric tradition, that's called the astral body. And in the Hindu tradition, that's called Manasmaya Kosha, the sheath made of mind. And that sense of this this layer of consciousness, our mind basically gets activated. The mind is made up of lots of emotions basically that have been there from past lives, but also from our present life, where sort of a black dog barks at us, and so we feel a fear towards black dogs whenever they bark. And so the sense of these emotional imprints in our psyche, in our consciousness, get activated because we are holding this state of stillness. Your listeners might be able to understand what it's like when you've been sick for a while and then you start to get better. And all of a sudden you become quite antsy. You want to start to move around. You want to start to do things. When you're trapped indoors because the weather's really bad for a couple of days, and then you get this what's called cabin fever, where you want to get up and go outside. You want to do things, and but you're still trapped inside. So that intensity also builds up. You noticed a lot of people during the COVID lockdowns also experienced a lot of mental health issues, and that was caused by this cabin fever coming up from being trapped indoors, not being able to move around to express your energy fully. That allowed that sort of created this sort of health problems, and so a lot of reflection there. So in meditation we cultivate that sense of stillness to be able to activate that level of fire, that level of cabin fever inside ourselves, that we can hold in a way that allows a kind of a cooking of those layers of consciousness that form our mind, and to help be able to burn that level of mind, because what's on offer beyond the mind is much more powerful, much more amazing than sort of anything the mind has to do. My teacher used to say that the mind was designed to help pick berries and to help you flee from being eaten by saber-toothed tigers. And it's an amazing device, don't get me wrong. It's created this incredible abundance and level of security and that we and lifestyle that we have now, where compared to being living in a cave back in the Stone Age days, our life expectancy was very short. So we've got a lot to be thankful for the level of our consciousness that's able to create all of this. But at the same time, it's also an encumbrance if we want to attain deeper states of awareness of who we are, what we're all about, what it is to be human, all of those sorts of questions.
I keep getting the hamster wheel and the blah, blah, blah. And I noticed, as you mentioned, with the COVID lockdowns and people started to work from home for the first time ever. And it was a completely different environment, and the cabin fever happened. But many people were not able to work as well. So, for whatever reason that happened, and people had to be with themselves. That it was a completely different environment. So it just made me feel like people had to, for the first time, they had to sit with themselves more than be distracted by their work, by something else. And so, you know, there's this wonderful term, involution going in exvolution. So can you talk a bit more about exvolution? I love that word. I love that word. So put this in your vocabulary, people in the audience. It's a great one to use. What can you
Okay.
tell us about?
So, well, exploration is a very interesting word because this is what we do all the time. It's like our senses are designed to go out into the world. And so we're looking at the traffic as we're about to cross the road. And so we're using our eyes. We also have our hearings. Our hearing is going out there, picking up any sounds. Is there a saber-toothed tiger lurking in the bushes? Or is there a car coming down the street that I haven't seen, but it could potentially knock me over? That sort of thing. And of course, the world is a very stimulating place. So our senses get attracted to that level of stimulation. How much time do you spend on YouTube or TikTok, for example, is a good question to ask, because it's our senses that are going out to absorb and to draw in all of this stimulation that we seek. And yet at the same time, that's the way our body has been designed to keep us safe. It's we're not going to be hunted down by the saber-toothed tiger, and so when we kind of look at the opposite of exvolution, it's an exvolution of our senses and our consciousness that's going out to scan the world and to absorb from the world. When we take that exvolution of our consciousness and we start to return that consciousness back inside ourselves, that is the involution of our consciousness. And this is the start of meditation. This is what meditation is all about. So if you meditate and you want to have a sense of stress relief, or to be happier inside yourself, or to just to find some sense of calmness or peace, this is the beginning of meditation. This involution of your consciousness is the beginning of meditation. And this is why you choose to do that. Recognizing, however, that it's the exercising of your involution of consciousness back to the source of where it comes from. That is the real meditation. And that is what meditation is all about. And that any sense of byproducts, maybe it's a better health, sense of well-being, sense of not being stressed or anxious, or all of those sorts of symptoms we experience in the modern world, is a sense of those are all byproducts of why we meditate, and those are very happy, beneficial things. So I'd never say not do meditation. It's kind of like, but understand sort of. If you really get into meditation, then this becomes a quest. It's a quest to find your home, and a quest of turning inwards to be able to find out who you are, who you really are. And so, yeah, it's interesting. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. It does. Quietening the mind. So, it's particularly in, some new age circles. And I think for a lot of people out there in the world who've not really tackled deep meditation practices, there's confusion between what's relaxation and what is meditation. Can you speak more about that and define, just to clear up the confusion between the two?
Sure. If I was given $1 for every time I was told that, my meditation is gardening, or my meditation is to go surfing, or to go for a jog, or whatever, then I'd be a very rich man. And it's fine. There's a certain release that happens from doing the gardening, from going and doing your surfing, or going for a jog. That comes from an exhaustion of the body, a discharge of the level of fire that's probably accumulated from a day at the office, for example. And that sense of, and it's fine. You get that sense of peace and tranquility that comes from exhausting the body to a certain extent. This meditation, where you involute your consciousness back towards its source, is is much more profound state of awareness or state that sort of arrives when you are able to go deeply into meditation. And the big difference between meditation and going surfing, for example, is you're very active in the water on your surfboard, which gives you that level of physical exhaustion, which also kind of quietens the mind because of the level of exhaustion you experience. And also it's being in harmony with nature too, as you surf down the front of a big wave, for example. The exhilaration that this brings is quite extraordinary. But then with meditation, you're just sitting there, you've got your eyes closed, you may be following a mantra or some other sort of meditation process. And that sense of involution, the turning inwards of your consciousness, is the only thing that's happening. And that any chitter-chatter of the mind is basically something to be seen, observed, let go, and kind of move deeper into your meditation using the mantra or your device that you use in your meditation to be able to cut through the chattering mind to go find that deeper space inside yourself. So two very different approaches to, and with two very different outcomes that sort of will, just to illustrate.
Yeah, it's interesting with people's thought forms on relaxation is often playing music, listening to music, and even there are people who practice meditation using, incense and things like that, but they are actually using your senses, like the sense of smell with incense and the sense of hearing with music. And so does music and things like incense detract from meditation? Because why are you go to India or go to Bali, go to those places, and it just reeks of the smell of incense, and there are all these sort of spiritual temples that you're walking past. So what's the go with that?
I did a video talking about meditation apps and how useful are they. And to be honest, in the beginning of your meditation practice, they're very powerful. They can induce big states, and that music can invoke deep feelings inside yourself. And so that's a wonderful thing because it is a step towards turning inside yourself. But at the end of the day, it's still an evolution of your senses are going outwards to be able to listen to the music, or to be able to smell the incense, or to be able to experience some sort of appreciation. And that sense of the external stimulation in the long run stops you from moving deeper inside yourself. So please use a meditation app or use music, whatever device you have, to take you into meditation. But know that at some stage, if you really want to progress your meditation, that is to go to profoundly deep states, you're going to have to let go of that external influence to be able to come to understand, to achieve deeper experiences inside yourself.
Yeah, it's interesting, having been to intensives myself with meditation, women wearing perfume can be a distraction when you're in this still space. It's just something that, it's too stimulating, way too stimulating, and it becomes a distraction. And I know some people think, oh, that's anal, but actually when you do get into those really, really still deep spaces, you have to be aware of things like overwhelming perfumes and things like that. It does have an effect. So I really get what you're saying there. Eventually, it's things like, what happens when you become a real full-on meditator is things like you don't wear perfume. You change your attitude for a lot of things. You generally, yes, you do listen to music for, it's a normal part of life, but I think you become more selective of what type of music that you do play. That happens. And one of the big things I've noticed is people stop drinking alcohol. Now that's something really amazing, and it happens just organically, that you stop desiring, you know, a beer or a drink. It just happens. What do you know? What's the mechanism at play there? Do you know?
Regarding alcohol, not sure, to be honest. You know, sort of, I probably have maybe a glass of wine once every 3 or 4 months, if in a social setting, but I don't crave it at all. It's almost like your senses become, your own inner state actually becomes more profound, more satisfying feeling, and so the sense of a kind of fullness inside yourself that sort of comes from being a meditator. Over a long period of time, it's not something that sort of emerges dramatically, and so you have less desire for those external influences, and certainly the byproducts of, say, drinking alcohol, maybe a headache or a hangover the next morning, just makes it not worthwhile. So it's kind of like when you can hold this state of inner stillness, inner fullness, that sort of becomes this profound way of living your life, I suppose. It's yeah.
Well, that's interesting, because I'm sure there's a lot out there in the audience, a big sigh of relief. Oh my God, I don't have to give up beer, you know. So you probably will change your habits, but it's not an absolute necessity to not drink it. So that's
Exactly.
probably
Yeah.
out there. Yeah, it's good. It's good to know.
And it should be an organic process. If you know, you never force sort of like, no, I'm not going to drink alcohol, and that's it. Some people may have that sense of willpower and be able to do that because they feel like it's going to benefit them in another way. But rather let something from inside emerge within you, where that desire for alcohol or cigarettes or whatever else just drops away. It's yeah, organic is good.
Yeah, it's interesting with people that have addictions. I mean, this is sort of sidetracking a little bit, but it's sort of coming into the space when you've got, you know, talking about cigarettes and alcohol, that they're, you know, it's part of the norm that happens. But some end up being addicted to these things. And the interesting thing that I see is that those with addictions are trying to make themselves feel better. And meditation is one of those things that gets you there, which also, because I do wonder how many people give up their addictions because of meditation. It must be a thing, because they're getting towards the very thing that they're seeking, which is the feel good. When you've got an addiction, you become addicted to something because you like the feeling of it, and you keep gravitating towards that feeling, and so before you know it, you're hooked on something. So yeah, just a bit of a side note on that, just an observation. So another thing, and this is between, you know, we get a lot of religious people who say that prayer is the same as meditation. And I do know in the Christian esoteric tradition, meditation is part of that. But is meditation and prayer the same thing, Peter?
I don't believe it is, to be honest. It's meditation is this involution of consciousness. So just understanding that that very principle, and that this is what you're trying to create. When you have achieved a level of involution, then there's all sorts of states of consciousness that open up to you. There's a myriad of different states of consciousness to be able to connect with. And part of that connection is connecting to spiritual beings and to spiritual worlds that exist beyond this physical plane. And as you open up to that, then you come in contact with these spiritual beings and worlds, and that sense of being able to commune with those spiritual beings and spiritual worlds becomes quite profound. Prayer is like picking up the telephone and basically saying, "Hello, God, please send me the Ferrari and the $1 million in my bank account by next Friday, and thank you very much." And it's that sort of it's a form of aspiration, asking for grace, for help, for some sort of boon, some sort of grace in your life, usually that comes out of a state of difficulty. And or maybe it can also be an expression of gratitude, or of wanting to be of service to the divine. Any number of things that you can pray for. But unless you have this sort of sense of connectedness to the spiritual worlds or spiritual beings, then it's less likely that that you're going to actually be able to manifest what you want from your prayer. It's kind of like doing a general broadcast into the air and sort of, well, is anyone going to receive it? We don't know. But when you involute your consciousness to the point where you can start to resonate with these spiritual worlds and spiritual presences, then there's some sort of communion and some sort of transmission that can be taken and can be made and can be heard. And this kind of potentiates your prayer, your aspiration, your devotion, your sense of connectedness to the divine. And so just want to draw that point. It's kind of like meditation basically potentiates your prayer, so that they are two separate things, but at the end of the day, the meditation will make your prayer stronger.
So alignment, it's the alignment that's key.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
I've used this word a few times in some of my podcasts, the term combinessence. So when you're aligning, there's a part of your energy that feels those. When we're going to get into the angelic as a separate, just in a bit, because there's a few more questions I want to ask you, but that alignment. So, okay, if you're picking up the telephone, you're just speaking and you're asking, and it's it's a pretty cold call type of thing. You've got hope, you've got the desire, you want it, and then but what's missing often in people's aspiration is that sense of feeling that you are connected. Because I've spoken to my audience about emotions, and feelings are such an important part of your human experience, and also for any angelic experiences that you have. Your feeling body is extraordinarily important, very important in your practices. So this alignment, can you talk, do you use your third eye in meditation? Is this part of what gets you aligned? What is the alignment?
Okay, so what is the third eye? The third eye is a gateway, basically, to spiritual worlds. And basically, if we reverse the model, we think of ourselves as a physical body, and inside us some organs and what have you, and it all happens, trillions of cells all working in unison, which is fine. But this physical body exists on the framework of a spiritual framework, basically. And that you may have heard the word chakras, which are like called wheels, or basically they are gateways of involution, to be able to involute your consciousness into deeper states of existence. And so I kind of so every chakra, we have a system of chakras. Chakras exist all through the body, and basically but there's, according to the Hindu tradition, there are some main centers, main chakras that sort of exist. One of them being the third eye, next is being the throat center, also above your head. There exist other centers of energy that sort of serve as points of involution for your consciousness. We also have the heart center, the will center, and the Svadhisthana, which is just above the top of the pubic bone, and also the at the base of the body, the perineum is another center, which is a very important center as well too. All of these serve as gateways for the involution of your consciousness, where your consciousness can return home. And so traditionally, the third eye is used as when it's awakened, it then becomes this window to be able to involute your consciousness into deeper states of reality, basically, which is a spiritual reality, which is far removed from your physical world.
So my understanding is that the pineal gland is the physical organ, whereas the third eye is the non-physical organ. Are they the same thing? Do you have any information on that?
Well, the fact that the pituitary gland and the pineal gland are very, very close to this atom this gateway of involution, being it appears like an atom when you can really place your consciousness to be able to see it, and it's very close to the pineal gland. Whether it's this chakra, this atom point that is actually activating the pineal gland, or the pituitary gland having an impact on the pituitary gland, remains to be seen. To be honest, I'm not convinced that the pineal gland is yes, it is a physical organ. It has a function in the human body, but if it's related to some form of spirituality, no, I don't agree with that at all. My observation is that it's this gateway that we have just near the pineal and the pituitary, that sort of is this point of involution that sort of creates a kind of master switch for your whole of your body of energy, that sort of gets activated when you switch this third eye on. So to take it one step further, we need a little bit more context as well too, because we have a physical body, of course, and this serves us well. Very important to look after this physical body if we want to be able to enjoy a healthful life and a happy life, because when that goes wrong, things go really pear-shaped very quickly, as everyone kind of knows. We also have this body of life force, which is the animating principle behind the physical body. And a really good trick is just to rub your hands together and then to hold your hands slightly apart and just kind of feel the level of vibration that occurs between the hands. This is your life force that you're feeling, and the life force actually extends beyond your physical body. So it's kind of like a sheath that goes over your physical, that is inside your physical body, but also sort of extends beyond your physical body. And traditional Chinese medicine and homeopathy and are all healing systems that work towards stimulating damage that occurs to this life force. This etheric body is the Western esoteric tradition term used for it. Let me see, so that just kind of like is the next level of the model. Then we have the astral body we've already talked about, which is the Manasmaya Kosha in the Hindu tradition. And then, of course, beyond that, there are other subtle bodies that sort of you might. And again, this is the Western esoteric tradition, because at deeper states of involution of consciousness, great mysteries kind of arise as to what consists of being a human being, what belongs more to more universal states of consciousness. And this is where very big questions start to come up, because different spiritual traditions, different religions have different views on where humanity is going and how humanity is evolving. And there are lots of questions that sort of kind of come out about that. The Hindu and Buddhist traditions talk about basically using meditation as a device to dissolve effectively your astral body, your mind, in a way that you're able to step into the self, to be able to dissolve your sense of me into an ocean of cosmic consciousness, that you become one with this cosmic consciousness. And that's a beautiful kind of like metaphor the Indians use, where they say it's like a salt doll being dissolved in the ocean, where your consciousness, your individual consciousness, the sense of me, this is my glass of water, this is my shirt, this is my whatever, just dissolves away in this, and that your consciousness comes to rest in this profound state of being, which is the self with a capital S. We define it, because there's me, the little self, but there's also the self, capital S, which is this vast, where you're united with this massive state of consciousness that is the divine consciousness, basically. And so whether that's attainable or not in a lifetime remains very doubtful. It's kind of like it's possible that spiritual masters who've practiced over many, many lifetimes are able to attain that consciousness. And that's a very profound sort of mystery that there's something you'd have to be really, really committed to, finding that sense of self that sort of
it's big, it's deep, it's not easy.
Exactly right. Yep.
Extraordinarily beautiful.
So that's one path that's offered by that is said to be the Hindu tradition, and the destiny of the Hindu tradition, and the Buddhist tradition. The Buddhists also talk about stepping out of the wheel of incarnation, where you stop being reincarnated lifetime after lifetime, because your consciousness now rests in the self, rather than your individual consciousness has dissolved into the sense of self. And that sense of coming from that standpoint changes your whole dynamic, your whole way of relating to the world. And this tiny little body basically is able to hold that state of consciousness for sort of limited phases, basically, because it's such an amazing vast thing that you've achieved. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's
I guess it depends on what level you are in your own consciousness as to whether you can really conceptualize that term, the self, because it's way, way bigger than, me saying this is your self and this is myself. This is a much bigger cosmic principle, isn't it? So, and I think people get confused with the self, the ego self. But I think that's that's a full-on topic that maybe
it is. Well, I'll just say one more thing about that, actually, because it's really interesting. If you were to ask yourself, who is watching this video right now, and you'd say, well, it is I, and then, well, who is I? And then it's kind of like you become very aware when you ask that question of your body, and yet the I is still there. So the I is separate to your body. And you may even have a sense of this I residing somewhere inside your head, or maybe you can put your awareness in another part of your body and feel that this is still I and that is still my body. And so there's this separation. You are that I, and meditation helps you to step more towards that I. That is the self. Okay. Now, if you can take that and you can move to the deepest levels of yourself, way beyond your physical body, that's an involution of your consciousness, in other words, then you step into the I, with a capital I, that sort of is the self. And but along the way, there is this dissolution of your sense of the little me, the little I, that sort of is more worried about making sure your fingernails have been trimmed, or you've painted your fingernails, or that you've got the right clothing for tomorrow's day at the office, sort of thing. It's, all of those sorts of imbecilic sort of things. It's It's
interesting with with real on meditation, you start to see these alternate realities, like, you've had your angelic experiences as well. And when you start going inward into your consciousness, you realize that there is more to this world than just my physical body. There's something else out there, and what's going on in the world. And we know there's a lot of nefarious stuff going on in the world where those negative powers that be are trying to separate us out from this sense of being a spiritual being. What is it that you're a spiritual being having a physical experience, that type of thing. But there's something, about this materialistic reductionism that's a big thing, which those powers are trying to say to us, you're just this meat sack, you're just this body with, arms and legs, and you're just doing it. And, many big organizations are trying to get us, separated from this sense of our spiritual self. And I find this, it's quite a disturbing thing. But when you start doing meditation, and it actually doesn't take long before you start realizing, hang on, there's something more. There's something more to consciousness than just my physicalness. And this is, it's one of the nefarious things that's been going on, where they're trying to knock that out of us, trying to take away our ability to see and feel and to comprehend, to actually know that we are more than this physical body. And to have those experiences requires going inward. And so we can see that that is why we're doing it in the first place. There's peace and there's calm, which is, absolutely necessary for us. But our true selves is found within. And
Exactly.
I just wanted to bring that out as, why on earth would you start a meditation practice? Why are you going through all of this? Well, hello. For one, that's the real world, not everything going on outside with all the government lies and mainstream media bullshit that's going on, all of that. That's all a distraction, and it's the lies going on out there. The real truth is within, isn't that? Am I on the right track there, Pete?
You are indeed. In fact, one of the guiding principles of my meditation school is that we use a mantra called "Not me, but truth in me," as a vehicle to be able to create this resonance with spiritual worlds and spiritual beings, but also to awaken to the sense of truth inside ourselves. In fact, my book is called Truth-Centered Meditation. If I can just give that a little plug.
Bring that
sort
up.
of yeah, so brilliant. Thank you for that. And that sense of truth is such an important principle. And it also kind of leads me back to that point where we were talking about the self and how the Buddhists and the Hindu tradition have a certain vector, a certain direction with their spiritual path and spiritual practice. The Western esoteric tradition has a completely different standpoint, and whether that involves aspects of the Hindu tradition or Buddhist traditions, I think it does, to be quite honest. But at the same time, there is this sense of a real quest for truth through the Western esoteric tradition. And essentially, the thing that backs the Western esoteric tradition is the path based on the Christian religion, and that sense of truth being one of the guiding principles of the Christian religion, and that sense of humanity evolving from pre-personal states of consciousness to personal states of consciousness to becoming transpersonal, where you have this sense of truth being your guiding light, truth being your sense of connectedness to spiritual worlds and spiritual beings, and that you are a servant of the divine, and that you are in service to the divine. And this is a profound aspect of Christianity that sort of doesn't pass too well, but it's kind of like when you choose to read the Bible, it's like parts of the Bible come across as a how-to manual for spiritual practice. And we can quote Matthew, for example, let thine eye shine like a beacon in the dark. And what does that mean? We're talking about the light of spiritual worlds that is streaming through your third eye that sort of allow you to perceive and to receive impulses from the higher levels of your subtle bodies, but also from spiritual beings. And this kind of illustrates the sense of where humanity it has the potential to go towards, and that is to become transpersonal beings rather than being very personal beings where we're more absorbed about my car and my house and my bank account and my material agenda and all of those sorts of things, to be able to sort of say, well, hang on, we have a bigger part to play in the spiritual cosmology of the world, and that is that sort of you can be a servant to the divine, if that is your choice, if that is your will. So yeah, hand that one back to you.
Yeah, it's fascinating, speaking about truth, because when all of this, the Great Awakening began, and all of these nefarious experiences occurred with them, the lockdowns, the lack of freedom that occurred. There's so many experiences that people are having, that it's actually very awakening to the soul. We're being blocked from so many things. And one of the things that I said when I was pondering all of this and watching all the circus go on is that at the end of the day, we have to learn to trust ourselves, because who can we trust? And this aligns with truth. What is the truth? Who can you trust to tell you the truth? Is what you're hearing the truth? But this is a whole different level of truth that you're talking about here. So whilst we're dealing with who's telling the truth, who's lying, is what we're seeing on the news real or not, actually feels like a distraction, a blah, blah, blah of the mind. And we're trying to figure out, is that person being honest or not being honest? And we're only left with being able to trust ourselves at the end of the day, not what somebody else is saying. So is this where, truth-centered meditation comes into play? I'm sure there's massive context with this. I might have opened up a can of worms, but it's true, isn't it? At the end of the day, you've only got your own self to align to. Where do you find truth? Can you mention anything?
This is such a huge topic, and it's really interesting because when we talk about our subtle bodies, I didn't mention that there is a fourth subtle body from the Western esoteric tradition perspective, and that is we have what's called an ego. That's ego with a capital E, which is the I am, and it's almost like the personal part of the universal part of the divine, and that this ego part of yourself is something that can be easily contacted, and when you can experience that as a light. It's the part of you that's eternal. It goes from lifetime to lifetime. It's the part of you that reincarnates and into each lifetime, and that from a standpoint of the ego, you can see all of your past lives and all of your future lives, and that's literally when you've awoken your third eye to a certain level, then you can start to perceive all of these sorts of things. Also, your third eye is your window to be able to perceive spiritual worlds and spiritual beings, and that sense of that opens up a whole new sort of sphere of activity, of awareness. But coming back to the mess the world's in at the moment, and that sense of needing to rely more on yourself. This is what meditation allows you to do, because first of all, it gives you that opportunity to turn your consciousness inward, to listen in silence, to see in silence, to be in silence, to be able to allow greater parts of yourself to come through, to shine through. And so your intuition, your sense of knowing, your sense of seeing, talking about spiritual seeing, your sense of hearing, again from a spiritual perspective, become really important, because you may be in a situation where you're being asked to make a choice. And if you make the wrong choice, the cost is going to be very, very high to you. And that sense of knowing, meditation becomes this practice to be able to engage those deeper parts of yourself, that allow you to be able to rely more on your intuition, more on your sense of self. So it becomes an operational being in the world, using your spiritual senses. You don't just go into your meditation state and sort of enjoy the experiences of your third eye and then you go about your life. There's an integration that takes place that allows you to be able to use your third eye in the world, to be able to perceive right from wrong, truth from falsehood, from all of to be able to cut through the bullshit of life, basically, and to have a sense of yourself in that, and to be able to differentiate and make choices, wise choices. Hope that answers your question there. And so this is one of the reasons why meditation is really powerful. It's like it helps you with your way of being in the world as much as it does to find the peace and tranquility and de-stress and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, the third eye, ultimately is giving you this heightened sensitivity, which blossoms out into many things, from intuition, psychic abilities, vision, that heightened awareness and that ability to smell what's true and what's not true is in amongst it. And then keeping your center in amongst all the chaos that's going on out in the world, really, really important. Now, we could talk about your angelic experiences, your connections, and I'm just wondering whether you want to get into that now, or maybe you'd like to come back and talk more about the angelic realms. How do you feel about?
Well, that's a huge topic in itself, so maybe we could come back and talk about that. But before we finish up, I just want to go back to talking about the Western esoteric tradition, because I think it's really important to understand the destiny of humanity, that as a life wave, we are kind of like, well, at the moment we're heading for extinction if we're not careful, but so be it if that's the case. That the key thing is that sort of is that humanity does have a destiny, and the Western esoteric tradition, and by this I mean that people like Rudolf Steiner, who's probably one of the greatest of the Western esoteric mystics, kind of clearly defined the evolution of humanity, in that we've gone through two phases. We're in the second phase of the evolution of humanity. First of all, we were pre-personal beings, and that's kind of very tribal in terms of our consciousness. We still retain a lot of those tribal traits, and if you have any doubt about that, go along to a football match and observe the two tribes battling it out on the pitch there, and that sense of and that's great. I mean, I love my football team, so don't get me wrong about that. So it's kind of like that sense of, that sense of humanity's evolved out of that pre-personal state, and where we did everything for the tribe. We're part of the tribe, and there was great cost if we were expelled from the tribe, for example, and we've kind of lost some of our pre-personal features, but at the same time we've also become more personal, so we're much more focused on, this is my car and my house and so forth. I said that all before. So and that sense of me has become very structured, very, very strong, and it comes with great social and human cost as well too, because along with the sense of me becomes this great level of neurosis and sickness that sort of comes from the sense of being our, somehow we've lost something in taking on these personal features. And yet the world has advanced so that, you know, never has there been so much have we lived for such long periods of time, and so forth. So that sense of our lifespan, not that that's that important, but that's because I think it's always more important how you've lived your life than how long you've lived your life. And so that sense of that the sense of me has brought a kind of disconnection, and that disconnection has been to each other, but it's also been to nature. It's also been a disconnection from spiritual worlds and spiritual beings, and that comes at a great cost. Religions have traditionally created this bridge between us as individuals and also spiritual realms and spiritual worlds, and for many reasons, because religions are often human-based institutions, they've also failed us as well. And so I understand the turning away from religion, but at the same time, when we turn away from the device that's given us that sense of connectedness to spiritual realms and spiritual beings, we've kind of lost something. And the task now is to be able to find that, regain that sense of lost spirituality, because we are spiritual beings first and foremost, as well as being human and in the world. And so the third stage that's Rudolf Steiner and others suggest is that humanity needs to advance to becoming transpersonal. We are in the thick of the personal stage at the moment, and so and with everything that comes with that, you know, so the crime, the disease, the dystopic thinking, the disaster that is potentially waiting there for the world, the sense of neo-feudalism emerging again. All of this is at so many levels just completely wrong, and part of that is because we've lost sense of our spirituality, and that if we were in more contact with that, not from a pre-personal perspective, but more from a sense of finding the divine inside ourselves, according to that Gnostic sort of perspective, then we have the opportunity to become what Steiner called transpersonal human beings. That is, we still retain the sense of me, myself, I. This is my mouse, my car, my drink. And yet, at the same time, we also hold a sense of the divine, and that sense of connection to spiritual worlds and spiritual beings, and to be able to align with that, to be able to receive the impulses of that, and to be able to act on those impulses. And that's the work ahead of us if we wish to be part of that. And yeah, so, and this is why we choose to meditate. And when we can align that with a sense of Christ consciousness, the sense of truth, then the sense of spiritual worlds, spiritual beings assisting us to be able to step into greater levels of truth, the more we become transpersonal human beings.
Beautifully said, Peter. Thank you so much. Now, I've covered the pre-personal, personal, transpersonal stage, but you've just added to it beautifully. And as you've said, we are right in the personal stage, which is full of neuroses and all sorts of. We've got ourselves into a real spot of bother, have we not? And which is why the inner work is so important. When you do meditation, you're going to find parts of you that just absolutely hate it because you can't be in your stillness, and all of the conditioning that is layered upon you through your life, from childhood right through to adulthood to the now, coming from past lives, from your karmic wheel, they'll come up. Whatever you haven't dealt with and haven't assimilated in your soul journey can come up through meditation for you to deal with. So, the Inner Work series is, primarily, a lot of it's very basic stuff, and very, it's all about the human experience. And, I've attempted, there's 21 now in the series, and it's attempted to show, different facets of experiences that you may or may not have had, and you can contemplate how it is you're coping with that or not coping with that. But that's why that series is there, because the personal stage is bread and circus. It's really difficult to navigate, and we've got ourselves into a spot of bother over it. And the whole idea is to get yourself through that. And you've evolved, you've transformed yourself, you've revealed the real you, and it's the real you that goes into the transpersonal stage. Would I be right in saying that, Pete?
Sounds pretty good to me so far. So yeah, cool. There's lots to it, of course. So it's not sort of it's an acquiring of the subtle bodies, building subtle bodies, that sort of allows you to be able to hold that more strongly and more resolutely. And so, and it's also about living your life in truth as well too, which is you're often faced with compromising situations, whether it's your workplace or relationships or whatever. And it's just it is what it is. It's the world.
Yeah, I just a really quick notation on that, because one of the things that you won't hear me saying a great deal is God, the word God. And the reason for that, it's not that I don't believe in God, I absolutely do, totally. And the term God means different things to different people. But, as you spoke about how the church became a bridge, where that bridge was like a block. You had to go through the church to get to anything to do with spirituality, but often you never went anywhere. And for a lot of people, sadly, being brought up in a religious environment, be it family, your schooling, through the church dogma, it damaged a lot of people. It damaged a lot of people, and so much so that they can't use the word. They cannot speak the word God without all of these memories coming flooding in that reminds them of really difficult experiences they had with the religious dogma. And I love to use the word divine in its place. Ultimately it means the same thing, but it hasn't got that same word gravity. To me, it's a softer term. So, this is just for my audience out there. I've had many clients come to me that they just can't do the God thing. I know of people that have gone into doing meditation, spiritual work, like in an intense way, and that's a big problem because they've got a lot of neuroses created by the church, and it's something that they have to deconstruct, dismantle, and it's a difficulty for them. So just because I don't use that word much does not mean that I don't align with the all that is, this massive cosmic principle.
Yeah, if I can also add as well that, it's not just about Christianity in the church. Yes, they're an institution, but you also have faced the same thing with Islam, where you have the, when you read the Quran, it's the first 8 chapters are really beautiful, and in kind of the sense of the divinity that Muhammad was able to express through the Quran. And then and then chapter 9, the last chapter, when Muhammad was actually in the phase of passing away. This is where all the stuff that comes in about jihad and war and that sense of going out and conquering and what have you. And so at the human level, it's kind of like each religion has a profound sense of divinity within it, and yet somehow that gets warped and sort of, because I'm sure Muhammad was trying to secure the legacy for this new religion that was starting, and as a result of that, sort of his writings in chapter 9 kind of talk about that sense of going out and expanding and conquering and what have you, and hence this sense of bloodshed between Christianity and Islam sort of has been the mainstay of the last 1300 years, basically, and it shows no sign of abating at the moment. And it's a tragedy, because to go into a church when spiritual presence is there, maybe it's a communion, maybe you're in a Greek Orthodox church or whatever, and you feel the sense of connectedness to the divine in that church, or you go to well, for me, I've never been in a mosque when some sort of a sermon or service has been given, but to walk around in a mosque and to feel the sense of divine there is just extraordinary, and it's something that sort of is akin to both religions, and yet somehow we can't find the peace inside ourselves to say enough of war, enough of violence, to be able to live in harmony. So yeah, it's a tragedy, and it also shows the dislocated state of our own psyches, that sort of somehow there's a part of us that is broken, and we can talk about this in our next podcast or video, and take that further if you like, because there is an origination of that, and that's the thing that needs to be healed if we're to ever find that sense of unity as a species, as between male and female.
Yeah, we're all wanting the same thing. You know, we're doing it in different ways, but we're ultimately all wanting to return back to ourselves, our centeredness, and our alignment, our source to God, the divine. Well said. And yes, Peter, we've got so much to talk about. You're an absolute wealth of knowledge. I just want to thank you so much for coming on and speaking to the audience here. And I hope people have got something out of this in terms of meditation. And I'll just bring up Pete's site again, so that, you know, if you want to delve into more of Peter's work, his website's there, petertwigg.com, and Truth Centered Meditation, which looks like a fabulous book to get your head around what meditation is all about. Looks fantastic, Pete. So before I let you go, is there anything you would like to say to the audience?
Find the answers inside yourself.
It's all an inside job. It's absolutely all an inside job.
Very good. Thank you very much, Julie.
Thank you so much. Just stay behind the scenes, Pete. I'm just going to say goodbye to my audience. Thank you so much. And I definitely want to have you on again. You've got so much knowledge to share. So thank you again very much.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay. So thank you, guys. I just, for those who follow the FCB platform, and also Peter's work, I'm offering currently a 10% discount off my check-in resilience counselling sessions. And this is going to be from now until the end of October. helping you to navigate what's going on in the world. Okay, so it's going to also involve a portion of healing light at the end of each session. So you're going to experience an absolutely beautiful experience with it. So to qualify for this, you must be a subscriber on the astraljules.com website. And when you do subscribe, send me a message via the website. Make sure you mention either Freedom Channel Broadcast, and you can use the acronym FCB, or Peter Twigg Meditation, PTM, and this will qualify you for the discount. And this is only until the end of October, so don't miss out. So guys out there, thank you so much for listening. Hit the thumbs up, place your comments below, care and share. That's the usual thing that we need to do on these social media platforms on Rumble. And everyone out there, hold tight. The forces are very hot this month. We are in Red October for sure. There is a lot happening. So please be kind to yourself. Be very kind to yourself and to your loved ones. Reach out and see if they need some help at this really difficult, interesting time that we're in. Okay, so until next time, guys, bye for now. Bye.